welcome to our Tides Part 3 movie. If you've missed parts 1 and 2, they're on our Facebook page and our YouTube channel. And this little movie we're going to have a go explaining what causes the tides and what causes springs and neaps. So I've got some pictures on the table. I've got a picture of the sun and the earth. Now what's happening? Well, the earth, as we all know, takes a year to do its wee trip around the sun. Okay, it's quite nice when you think you have a birthday, you've already been a space traveller and you've travelled a whole year around the sun. Well, we do that every year, so the Earth's doing this. What else is happening? We're spinning on our axis, we're spinning round, if you like, every 24 hours. And then we add in our moon. What's our moon doing? Our moon takes 28 days, or roughly a month, to do a wee trip around the Earth. So what does all this mean? Well, this is what's causing the water to move on the Earth to give us tide. So when the moon and the sun are in line, as they are just now, it causes us to have really big tides, as in we have really high tides and really low tides. It pulls a bulge on the water on this side of the Earth, and there's a kind of corresponding bulge on the opposite side of the Earth. And remember, we're spinning on our axis, so every 24 hours we would spin through a high tide, a low tide, a high tide and another low tide, giving us this pattern. So this would be big spring tides when the moon and the sun are in line. The gravity is what's doing the work, so the gravity of the moon pulls the water, but the gravity of the sun is having an effect too, so it's making this, if you like, an extra big lump of water to make extra high tides, and that means that we have extra low tides. So it takes about a week for the moon to move to this position. Now it would be having quite a different effect here, because what it's going to be doing here is pulling the water in an opposite direction. What it's doing here is pulling the water towards the moon, but the sun's still pulling some water, so our tides are much smaller, they're much less pronounced. We've got lower high tides and higher low tides, which means we have neap tides. So it's taken a week to go from springs to neaps. The moon carries on its little journey and goes out to this side. Let's just move this all a bit closer so we can get it on the camera. And this would be us moving back to spring tides. There we go, so we've got a big bulge on this side because the moon's pulling the water this way and the sun's pulling it the same direction, so we end up with spring tides. So that's taken a week to go from neaps back to springs, and then another week to get back to here, where we would be back to our neap tides, because the moon is pulling the water, if you like, in an opposite direction to the sun. So neap tides are actually when you'd see a half moon in the sky, and when we have spring tides, this would be when you have a new moon, and this one would be when you have a full moon because the sun's shining fully on it. And hopefully that explains roughly what's causing the springs and the neap tides and the tides, so that then we can understand it. To check the tide for any particular place, you then need to look up a tide table for that location. But we'll leave this at this point just now. If you've got any questions, do please post them in the comments box below. Thank you.